Hi, and welcome to my channel. Or if you're a returning subscriber, hi again. It's so nice to see you back here for another video. My name's Tess Lark, and today I'm going to show you how you can use epoxy resin, some alcohol ink, and gold leaf to create some really beautiful 3D resin blooms. As always, I'll have all the materials that I use for this project linked in the description below, so all of that information will be down there for you. And let's just hop into today's video. Alright, so to start today's project, I went ahead and I mixed up 250 milliliters of clear resin, so just using equal parts of resin and hardener, and then after I mixed it, I let it set off to the side for about 5 minutes. As you can see, there's a lot of air bubbles that rise to the surface during that time, so then I can easily hit them with my heat gun before moving on to the next step. So first I'm going to section off just about 20 milliliters or so of some resin, and I'll be adding some white alcohol ink to that to pipe in my flowers later in this project. The alcohol ink that I'll be using today is by Pinata Colors. It's their Blanco Blanco, and I can't find my smaller container, so I'll just be using it out of this larger container and using a pipette just to put a few drops of that white into my clear resin that I put off to the side. I've personally found that the Pinata brand of alcohol ink works really well in resin. It gives a lot of great pigment and doesn't affect the curing process of the resin, but I'd love to know what your favorite brands are, so if you leave me a comment below, let me know what sort of pigments you like to use, whether that be alcohol inks or gels or mica powders. I'm always really excited to learn new tips and tricks from you guys. Whenever I'm mixing resin, I like to see how it looks on the end of my popsicle stick, and then I can tell if it needs a little bit more pigment or if it's the right color. But now that I've got my white mixed up, I'm going to section this off to the side, and I'll be putting it in a little Ziploc bag that I'll be using as a piping bag. But first I'm going to hit that one more time with my heat gun before transferring it over, again to pop any air bubbles. So I've just taken another empty clean cup and I put my sandwich bag in that, and then I'm going to pour all of this white resin into that sandwich baggie, using my popsicle stick to scrape the sides of the cup and make sure I can get as much of that resin into the bag as possible. Next, I'll remove that bag from the cup and get all of that resin to one side of my bag, and then I will go ahead and seal up that bag and set it off to the side to use a little bit later in this project. And again, I just like to remind you that if you're finding this video to be useful or helpful in any way, please don't forget to give it a like. It not only helps out my channel a whole lot, but it also lets me know that I'm making content that you want to see from me. Now that I have my white resin prepared, I'm going to go ahead and use some gold leaf and get that ready to use for the center of my flowers. So I've just taken a small piece of gold leaf here, and I'm going to use my fingers to break that up. And then once I've gotten it into small enough pieces, I'm going to add just a little bit of resin. But I don't know if I have quite enough gold leaf here, so I'm going to add one more sheet to my small little measuring cup here. And I don't want my pieces of gold leaf to be too big, so I'm really taking my time here and just using my fingers to break all of this up into smaller pieces and add them into my little measuring cup. After I've got the gold leaf small enough, I'm going to take a very small amount of resin. As you can see, I'm just using the resin that's dripping off the end of my popsicle stick, and I'm going to add a little bit of that to the gold leaf. And I'm doing it this way because I don't want the gold leaf to spread throughout the entire piece. Instead, I want it to stay in the center of each coaster, making the center of my flowers. So I want it to be a bit of a paste consistency like what you can see here. And now that we've got our gold leaf all set up and ready, we'll move on to our next step. My next step is to pour the remainder of my clear resin into 4 of these coaster molds. And I just do this by eye. I try to get them as even as I possibly can. I don't typically measure, so you know, just do your best. Or if you want, you could also measure out exactly 20, 30, 40, or even 50 milliliters of resin and pour them in each one of your coasters. And then again, I'm just using my popsicle stick here to make sure I get all of that resin out, trying to make sure that these coasters are as even as I can get them. Next step, of course, I'm going to hit these with my heat gun, again to pop any bubbles that are forming in the resin. As you probably know, air bubbles are a resin artist's least favorite thing. So now I'm taking a little bit of that gold leaf and resin that I made earlier and putting that in the center of each one of the molds that I poured some of the resin into. And I'm doing this just using 2 popsicle sticks. Now that I have my base layer poured and the center of my flowers set, I'm going to very carefully cut the tip off of my piping bag because I'll be using this white resin really soon. And so you don't want it to be so big that you can't control how much comes out, but you also want it to be large enough that you're getting a really good flow of resin. And I'm going to set this off to the side on a paper towel because now that it's open, it's going to leak quite a bit. And my next step will be to start layering in my colors. But really quickly about the piping bag, if you do find that you make your hole just way too big and too much resin's coming out too fast, I think the best course of action is to squeeze all of that resin that you can out into another closed bag and then just try to recut your hole. I'm also realizing that I forgot to show you which colors I'm using for this part, and I'm very sorry for that. I'm using alcohol inks by Pinata Colors. I'm using the Sunbright Yellow, the Rainforest Green, along with the Baja Blue. Started with the yellow, I went in with the green, and now I'm just filling in some of that negative space using the Baja Blue by Pinata Colors. Now that I've got a good amount of pigment in each one of my coaster molds, I'm going to begin to pipe in my white. So starting from the center of the flower right around that gold leaf and working my way to the outer edge, just making a spiral. And if I were to do this project again, and what I would tell you guys is maybe only go around the center of your flower 4 or 5 times. Any more than that, and I feel like there's just kind of a lot going on. But after I've piped in my white, I'm just taking a popsicle stick and using that popsicle stick to drag those lines into the center, creating a petal pattern. And of all the techniques that I've tried for making a 3D resin flower or an epoxy bloom effect, I think that this is by far the easiest technique, but if you're curious about other techniques, I do have some more videos right here on YouTube, so I'll make sure to link a couple of those in the description below and you can check them out when you're done with this video. I'd also love to know what you guys are working on, or if there's a project that you can't wait to start, leave me a comment below and let me know. Or let me know if you just like watching crafting videos. I know for me personally, I find them pretty relaxing. But as you can see, after just a few moments, I've already got a bit of a petal flower formation happening. These are looking great. So I'm gonna hit them with my heat gun before covering them up and letting them cure completely. All right, so we're moving forward in time by about 24 hours here, and my pieces are cured. They're looking really great from the back. I love this color combination. Let me know what you guys think of these colors below in the comments as well. I want to give these coasters a black background, so I went ahead and I mixed up another 100 milliliters of clear resin, and to that I'm gonna add some Mattia Black alcohol ink by Pinata Colors and some Space Gray mica powder by Arteza. So starting out with that alcohol ink and just putting a few drops of that into my resin and adding a little bit of that Space Gray mica powder. And I really love this Space Gray with the black combination because the black is so dark and inky and lovely, and the gray adds a nice metallic shine to the finished product. Once again, just checking to see how my resin's looking on the bottom of my popsicle stick, and she is lovely and ready to go. So next I'm going to begin to pour some of that black resin evenly into each one of my coasters. And again, I just want to have a black background. I don't need these molds to be completely filled. They are quite thick, especially for a coaster. So just making sure that I've got a good even layer on each one of these, just so I have a nice black background. And I'm just using my popsicle stick again here to really scrape out all of that resin, make sure that I'm not wasting any resin, and make sure that I've got enough to evenly coat the back of all of my coasters. It's okay if it's not completely covered, as the resin is quite viscous, so it takes a while for it to level out. And especially after using my heat gun to pop any of those bubbles, that's going to get the resin nice and warm and make it more liquidy and more willing to spread out over the back of the entire coaster. And now that I've got my second layer of resin poured on these coasters, I'll once again cover these up and let them cure completely before I pull them out of their molds, so I will see you very soon. Alright, so I went ahead and I let the second layer of resin cure overnight, so it's nice and hard, totally solid, and ready to pop out of the molds. So let's go ahead and see how they turned out. Here's our first one. So much depth and dimension, and the colors in there are so gorgeous. This is seriously one of the easiest ways to make a 3D epoxy bloom, I swear. Number 2. Again, beautiful color, so much dimension, really lovely. I love how the gold leaf looks in the center of these flowers. Absolutely just stunning. And the black background really makes all those colors really, really pop. Moving right along. This guy here. I love how much blue ended up in this one with just these little pops of this lime green. It's really, really pretty. And let's go ahead and pull out the last one from this set. Again, so much depth. There's so much color. I love when the color kind of bleeds out on the outside of rim. It's really beautiful. And I will definitely make sure to take some footage of these in the natural light so you can see them a little bit better, but I am so happy with how they turned out. There is a little bit of a lip on these guys, so I'll use my rotary tool and I'll go ahead and sand these down and then place some rubber bumpers in the back, and they'll be ready to go ahead and list on my Etsy site, which is fragilebings.com. If you want to check out my shop, it's a great way to support my art and this channel. I really hope that you found this tutorial useful, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this video. And if you did make it all the way to the end, leave me some sort of flower emoji just so I know that you made it. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!